Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Alley Creations. How are you? Blessings. Hope you're all having a beautiful day, being the light that you are. If you connect with my work or get anything from my work, or a new book to read, a new author to explore, had an epiphany, a mind explosion, or anything that helps you connect to your own self, in the description below this video, there are some links that you can help me have an energy exchange of keeping the lights on and keeping the bills paid. Um, and I want to thank all the people that do help provide that for me. It's a blessing. And I thank you all. The struggle is real. My website, AllyKat211 is where you can see my portfolio. A whole plethora of art, paintings, sculptural paintings. I do customized drawings, pyramids to an extent, and all kinds of other fun goodies. Kindles. Check me out on AllyKat211.com. There you'll see everything. Email me if you're interested in anything. Because of financial constraints, I don't have a store. My store is me. If you are so inclined to support me in other ways, you could support me here on YouTube. I have channeled memberships. I only have one tier for now. As the community grows, as my channel grows, it will get a little more advanced. But right now, all those new subscribers, new members really, they're getting a free access to my raffle, which I'm going to announce during the week. I'm still unpacking my pyramids. I'm going to be raffling off a pyramid. It will be after Christmas that I do the drawing, more closer to the new year, but I'm going to be doing that raffle. Most likely $5 a raffle ticket, which enters you into winning a pyramid. My channel members get a free raffle ticket. So very exciting there. Haven't picked one out yet. I want to intuitively pick one that will connect to the people that are members. And I'm going to be doing a paint and sip. I still don't know how I want to do that, if I'm doing it just on Zoom, if I'm recording myself doing it and sending it just to members if they're interested, or just having fun and including people on a Zoom to go live. We'll see. We'll figure it out. I'd like to encourage others. Doesn't matter your artistic talents. You don't have to have any. You could do stick figures. It doesn't matter. The other thing I'm going to be doing is a craft, because not everybody has accessibility to paint or anything of that sort. So I want to do a craft. I'm still looking around the house, looking for things that I can make a craft out of for the holidays. So yeah, those are really exciting things upcoming. I have 2 weeks off. This is my last week of work before our Christmas break, which I don't get paid for. If I don't work, I don't get paid. And no job came through for me. So I'm just doing things as a donation base with the paint and sips. Oracle card readings are on the table for those 2 weeks. I will have a lot more time to doing a lot of that. I might go live a bit more. So we'll see what happens. I'm trying not to, my old reaction would be to stress out. This reaction is I'm not trying to sweat the small stuff. Things will get paid when they get paid. I'm getting hit with a lot of insanity right now, and I don't know what to do or how to go about fixing my situation in a smart manner. So we'll see what happens. Though I do thank everybody for helping me in my growth and helping me financially. It sucks. So the Law of One, paper 83, April 5th, 1982. What a freaking section. But the last section was crazy. This one was good too. Tobacco, folks. It is raining. It is 50 degrees outside in Northwest Indiana, which is, I'm only been here 2 years, January. Already in Indiana, in period, not in this house, December 7th. So I've been here for 2 years. Our weather, this weather is not unlike New York weather. It's very similar. But where the jet stream is, it is a bit colder. So the last couple of, like during the week last week, it was like 2 degrees. And all of a sudden it's 50. My body can't handle that. So I have been in a lot of pain, aches, pains. I got my heater on, even though it is 50. I'm still feeling a little chilly. I'm trying to save money on the electric and the gas, which has been one of the higher bills, even on one person, barely home. Crazy. So this section that I'm going to cover is very much pre-veil. So the veil didn't always exist in third density. Was in it was implemented as a part of the experiment. And there's a lot of good questions I plucked out from this session that I want to tackle. A lot of things I'm going to quote from Rob because he says things eloquently in a way that I just can't do for my own self. So yeah, give me a sec. Fun times. So the questioner wants to know about third density before and after the veil, asking about sex, disease, sleep, pain, and other things. Among this, the communication with the higher self. Like, how does that work? Because if we go into Dolores Cannon and she's like, the veil was there. So if we knew everything before we incarnated about our other selves, our higher selves, and just to come here to have an experience, perhaps we wouldn't get much out of life. We wouldn't be learning much. We would be just mooling around life like, oh, I already know what's going to happen. Or, oh, I already realized I put this person here for that reason. Okay, like what matter does any of this make? So we have to take that into context that there was, from Ra's perspective, no veil when you incarnated at some point, maybe, who knows if in your soul, incarnated or not, pre-veil. And the veil is just the forgetting of what you are. And all the lifetimes we have strived to live in each and every one of the shells that we have inhabited in different eras of time, space, concurrently happening right now. What, with the veil in place, it's learning why we are here. It's the evolution of our soul growth in third density. It's coming to the lessons, the catalysts that promote soul growth. Because prior to the veil not being there, you really didn't, the lessons were there, obviously, because there's a multitude of ways you could have handled something that is still your free will choice, and which timeline you're presented with gives you a different outcome. But it's an interesting concept And I think the achievement of having the veil, and many of us haven't really had much of a veil. Certain things are still veiled to us because if they weren't, we wouldn't learn, grow to the extremes that we need to polarize to the light or to the darkness. So Ra, quote, firstly, let us establish that before and after the veil, the same conditions existed in time space. That is, the veiling process is a space-time phenomenon, end quote. Ra goes on to say that experience was drastically altered because of the process of veiling. For example, with dreaming and the contact with the higher self is a quantitatively different experience, as veiling is a primary cause of the value of our dreams, as the higher self is waiting entry behind a single door for us to open. Before the veiling process, dreams were not for unconscious catalysts to be utilized, but to learn, teach within the inner planes, also out of origins of higher density. So a lot of people ask about what your dreams are about and why do you even have dreams when you're sleeping and you remember them. It's your unconscious playing out stuff in your life that you didn't necessarily see existing, or other selves, your other selves playing roles that need to be healed, and you're doing such things to bring about that healing, or bringing something that is inhabiting within you that you're unaware of, like fear of death, losing your teeth, or, just naming a few couple of concepts that people have a large amount of people have dreams about. Being chased, certain symbology showing up in your dreams, all serves a purpose and all are catalysts for you to explore. But pre-veil, it's discovering things on another plane and in higher density. So I found that very interesting that he said that. Quote, in the instance of the sexual activity of those not dwelling within the veiling, each activity was a transfer, end quote. So a lot of people do equate when you and your divine complement or a partner, doesn't need to be gendered or anything, just you and someone else has a sexual encounter, there's a transference of energy. Your two fields are there. And when it's done in love, the frequency of love, and it's a lot of passion there, and a lot of your transference of energy is at its peak, which is important. So you have to be careful. That's why they say, be careful who and what you do things with, because your energy is being transferred to them. That's why a lot of light workers attract a lot of people who have a lot of trauma and damage and use sexual energy to heal those other people, their other selves, the people that you are engaging in those activities with, although their energy field transfers to you. Not the smartest tactic either. But a lot of people are drawn to people like us and get used a lot of the time, but it's not necessarily in a bad way. It's we're healing their energy fields through that act. That's why after a while, when the healing is done in whatever aspect your energy transfer is healing on that soul, they get disinterested because they no longer have the yearning for that healing. And they don't know what that is. You might not know what that is, but now that you know, just be very careful who you are engaging in sexual activities with, because not all of those activities, it hurts your heart, even though you're doing healing. I don't know another way without getting too explicit in describing such, and I don't want to stray too far away from Ra. But that's just my intaking of that perception. So who are you transferring your energy with? So in third density, quote, in the third density, entities are attempting to learn the ways of love, end quote. This is from Ra. Your energy transfer, when you're in your purest form of love, the frequency thereof that you are exuding off into your field, is being transferred to somebody who needs or is also exhibiting that same frequency and is transferring back to you. You're learning the ways of different types of love. And what I've been saying through a lot of my videos with Ascension is that love is a frequency, and we all perceive love differently. We define it differently. We feel it differently. We have to mature that concept of what actual love is. And that's going to be perceived differently still. But we have to simplify in definition what it actually feels and means to us. Instead of just throwing it out there as a laissez plain word, just saying it to say it, that doesn't hold or do anything in your frequency field. Like what you say is what you put, what you thought put in will and intention is projected. If you're giving false love or not defining it with the truest and ultimate form of what it can be, you just tell somebody I love you to manipulate them. Is that real love? And is that the field of expression you want to hold? So while I was reading this section, it came to mind that many of us need to really start defining our definitions and taking the broader emptiness of what many people use the word love in and confine it to respect, loyalty, that feeling that you can't describe that still exists within your heart space when you look at a person you are connected with. Then you have your animals, you have unconditional love. The definition of love, just like many other words, is too broadly based. You have to hone it in because you are technically transferring your energy to another person when you're talking to them or when you're engaging in any kind of activity with somebody. You want to come from the most authentic place in your heart, not some, I'm going to manipulate this person and say, I love you, and try to get a different result from what the original meaning of that word is. Oh, I just want sexual gratification, so I'm going to tell that person I love you when you just want that sexual gratification. You don't really actually mean you love them. You're saying it out of you don't feel it, but you don't want to lose that person, and you're going to say it in falseness. This is a big problem that occurs in society today. And I'm just using love in that regard, in a relationship type aspect, as a big example. A lot of people can correlate with it. I actually never felt anybody else's love towards me. When they say I love you in a romantic in a romantic sense, I never had somebody actually mean it when they said it to me. They felt a form of love, but it wasn't in its authenticity in their heart space. It was more out of a manipulative, I need to keep you around, and if this word is going to hold you here, I'm going to do it kind of way. I have never felt it from another person in a romantic gesture or sense. And many of the people that would claim that they meant it more out of a lustful way and not out of an authentic, actually love you kind of way. Um, and actions do speak louder than words. So if I'm not seeing the actions being reciprocated from the way I love somebody, I don't need it to be the same way, but it reflects in how they actually love themselves. And a lot of people are still in the the healing portion of their journey of actually finding themselves to love themselves in its fullness. Sorry, I'm getting off my soapbox. Quote, if it can be seen that all are one being, it becomes much more difficult for the undisciplined personality to choose one mate and thereby initiate itself into a program of service, end quote. After the veiling, we have a more efficiency in crystallizing those seekers of the green ray energy center. Because we don't know who we orchestrated relationships with, and they randomly just come and pop up into your paradigm when it's needed, when both souls are in each other's proximity and you have a feeling about a person or you're caught attracted to somebody, it's more efficient that way to polarize and to crystallize your heart chakra because you are not in the awareness that you know this person prior to the veiling. You orchestrated this relationship for whatever it is, karmic, twin flame, soulmate, or just a lesson that needed to be transpired, and both of you made a contract to do it together in this lifetime. You would not know any of this with the veil down. Without the veil, you would already know that this person is going to come into your life. You have many lessons to learn with them, but you already kind of have an inkling of what those lessons already are, if not the full capacity of it. And then you get to have free will choice in choosing, are you going to even go through with it? Or are you just going to skip it because I already know the outcome? This is why the veil was put into place so that we would not know or remember who we make contracts with to have certain experiences with. And if we didn't have those experiences, we wouldn't have a bigger soul growth. Going through the pain of a relationship, whether it's successful or not, is important for our soul growth to learn different types of relationships, to learn how to love somebody authentically. I don't need somebody to have $1 million and to give me the world to love them. I don't need those things. That's not what makes me happy. When someone shows up for me and supports me in the ways that mean something to me, that's when I'm going to love them even more. So, for sure, when we understand that all other selves are playing out and you're trying to find your divine complement is your other part of your soul that's masculized or feminized. That's here. That doesn't make them your actual divine complement for when you do ascend and meet that soul, your other self in 5D, 6D, and you merge with them. That's probably not your life partner that you had in third. That's just somebody sharing a fractal of your essence that also needs experience. But that's just a little bit of you within them. It all is a mirror that is reflecting back at you the aspects that you need to heal. And I'm going to say this, Viking is one of them. Viking, him in his essence is reflecting both my parents within one being. He's reflecting back to me everything that both my parents exuded, the good, bad, and the ugly, to make sure that I'm healed. His daughters are mirrors for the two aspects of my own self that I lived in this life that I hope to have healed. And they're both exhibiting those aspects of myself too back at me. So it's very interesting dynamic that I'm being played into, but it's all for me to see if I'm healed. If I need more healing, what is the triggers that are bringing it up? Everybody serves a purpose in your life, and you have to figure out what those purposes are. And that's why the veil is so important, as much as it sucks to certain extents. I'm happy I have the veiling, because if I knew already, then I wouldn't really want to pursue something that would hurt me. But through that hurt comes a lot of growth and experience and understanding of what could potentially be better for me. Each relationship is at a frequency, and if you are outgrowing that frequency, that relationship henceforth has no need in your life. And I get it. It sucks when you have children involved in financial constraints, but you have to be real with yourself. This one, the questioner asks about the purpose of the incarnational life review, pre-veil and post-veil. Meaning before the veil came into this existence and then after when the veil was dropped. What was the purpose of that life review? So we hear about when people die or have NEDs that they go up and there's a life review. Their angels are showing them aspects of their lives, how it played out in this lifetime. And this is where they don't go into this aspect, but this is an aspect I do want to bring up. So I think it's important. How do I word this? So a life review is held, think of it as a council. Um, I read a couple of accounts like this, where the soul is sitting around with their angels, their guides, their higher selves, their other selves, and the people they orchestrated their lives with, which is just fractals of you. And they're all sitting around like a round table, put it in that way. And in this round table, you're looking at, let's just say, like a scrying bowl or whatever. You're looking at all the situations in your life. And you're picking the ones that really affected you. Big catalysts. You're going through the whole slew of things. But you're picking out certain things that you might have not done the best in reactions, where you have repented, things that you helped other people, like a whole plethora of things that you are viewing in what you just died from and your experience, and you're going through this with everybody. I don't believe that we're going to have I believe, let me reword that, we're going to have a complete different experience when we all ascend. Whether it be in this shell that we die and we have that kind of review, but it's going to be a bit different in my estimation, because many of us are not going to orchestrate coming back here to play out karmic debts. If karma via a few people say that is going to be like kind of nixed, like it's going to be null and void because we're moving up and then higher density, we're still accumulating points in karma. It's just going to be distributed differently. Third density, you go up and you have a communion with all the people that you had shared time with and say, well, you taught me this, but my lesson never got through to you. We orchestrated this to happen and it never did. We need to play that again. But maybe this time you could be the aunt and I could be the cousin instead of the mother-daughter aspect. Or this relationship was supposed to actually stay, but free will, you both chose not to stay in that relationship. Here, we need to try this again because our mission wasn't completed, if that makes sense. And then all of you can orchestrated your births and injunction around when you're supposed to meet. You all do this. Everybody does this. And then you are flushed back down into a person and born, and you have the veil and you forget what you just orchestrated upstairs, and then a lot of things start synchronously happening that, oops, you met the person you're supposed to find. Up, you have a relationship, you don't know why, and you play out from there, but you're not in the knowing. You have a feeling that there might be some ties there, and then sometimes deja vu does happen, where you're like, wait a second, I know you from somewhere, I just can't place where. Like I felt like I did something with you before, but I can't put my finger on it. This is the third dimensional aspect of veiling that is going to drop. And I think it's very important that we understand how we orchestrate our coming in and having catalysts, because those catalysts, good, bad, or the indifferent, are helping you polarize to one or the other. So negative or positive. How you react to the catalyst also helps you polarize so that you can be harvested, that you can graduate, you can ascend. And I really love, I could not quote this because Ra does this so eloquently. Ra replies, quote, "It is true that the nature of time-space is such that a lifetime may seem whole as a book or a record. The pages studied, rifled through, and reread. However, the value of review is that of the testing as opposed to the studying. At the testing, when the test is true, the distillations of study are made clear. During the process of study, which you may call the incarnation, regardless of an entity's awareness of the process taking place, the material is diffused and over attention is almost inevitably placed upon detail." End quote. So it's the tests that we go through and then go through the studying component of the why questions I always talked about, like, why did this happen for me? Why was this orchestrated? What was I supposed to learn from this? What is the lesson of this catalyst that that person put me through or brought to me? And this is like a studying when we do those questions and introspection and reflect. Because you're looking back at the situation and seeing where you could have changed something. It's not the woulda, coulda, shoulda thing that people do. Well, if I did this, that person would have stayed. No, you can't control another person's reactions. They have to control it. What you can control is going back and revising, coming out of love in your imagination and fix that ripple in the time space. They do that in reconstructing reality. Ra goes on to say that incarnative states of the testing isn't the testing of correct memorization of details. The testing is truly observing the self by self, an aid to observe a sum of all details, being a complex of attitudes, which the biased consciousness of our complex mind, body, spirit. So it's just about everything that I was saying. It's not about getting the A on the test or the outcome of what you did. Is it an A plus to an F? It's observing yourself and being objective with what you're seeing yourself do without the judgment. The only person you're judging at the end of the day, when you are in your death state, in spirit, you judge yourself. That review is to show you all that you have done. Those that are judging themselves place themselves in the lower earths, what you would deem to call hell, to work out the wrongs within themselves. And when they are ready to call upon God and repent, or just to say, wow, I was in ignorance. Who figured? Why wouldn't my soul choose this? Because your soul needed that experience for whatever the reason, you might not know at the time. And once you go through the pain and the suffering of what people would deem purgatory or hell, which is just you coming into realization that you don't need to suffer, you don't need to be in those states of existence, you don't need to judge. You tend to then judge less, and you are brought back into the light, and you are then healed and return to whatever situation that you need to return to have another incarnation or merge with something else to have different types of experience for your soul growth, aka extraterrestrial, interdimensional, another guardian, a being, whatever have you. I had to pause because there's something here. The complex of attitudes, which the biased consciousness of our complex. That's the programming that we're running off of. We all hold biases, whether it can be a good bias or it can be a bad bias, but we still all have them. And I was just trying to connect to see. So we're shown those biases at this life review. And did it hold you back or did it propel you forward? That's something that a lot of us need to really reflect on in the now moment, is what biases are you holding? What judgments are you placing on other people that you probably need to take a second look at? Do you have hate in your heart for other people? Is it being projected onto you? It's just like the sides of name calling, liberal, conspiracy theorist. this group, that group, this thing, that thing, victim, victimizer. Um, we all have preferences. We all prefer certain things over another, right? And that could be our biases. So we need to really take into consideration the things that we hold biasing towards and take them into a neutral ground to see why we have them. And we could do that in the now space so that when we do have our life review, and we all will have them, we'll be better equipped at understanding if you do it now. And to avoid the fluff that you don't need to review, I rather review the things that I missed and that could do in a higher density in a different way that will get better results than stirring up things that really are not going to propel me forward. I mean, all things will, and you can learn from anything, but I want the tricky shit to be what my life review is showing me that I missed. Moving on. The questioner asks about Preveil and an entity being aware of experiencing a disease and their reaction plus effect it would have. I chose this. They do talk about in different questions about pain and suffering and of stuff of that nature. But what is interesting is Ra's response to this. Ra replies, the universe has an infinite composition of entities, which gives an infinite number of responses to stimulus. Each entity expresses a different response to the same distortion towards disease. So whether you are in the awareness that you implanted a disease or a health issue, just you leaving it with that, or not, each one of us experiences it differently. Pain is objectively in our own mind, distributed in neural pathways for us to experience. It's unique to us. There's similarities in a lot of things, but each of us have a different start point to our illnesses, different pain levels that we perceive to be either really painful, and some people nick a thumb and they're like in excruciating pain, where you nick something and you're like, whatever, I'm bleeding, doesn't bother me. Everybody has a different threshold and response to what they're going through, and that includes disease. So Preveil, they could come in and say, well, I want this disease and I'm going to let creator experience it through me in this way for itself to know itself better. Just like rheumatoid arthritis, when I talk about my experience at the YMCA, where the older people were like, well, you can't have that. What are you talking about? You have that. That's all person's disease. What are you talking about? And I'd say, well, that's what I was diagnosed with. I understand the disability of having it. I get the pain and the tiredness and the suffering. I get it. Why can't you have compassion towards me? I'm only doing what I can to maintain my life. And you're going to sit here and criticize me because you want perfection from a job that doesn't even pay anything. But that was a catalyst for people to learn from me, that I have overcome a lot of that disability. I tried different modalities, and when I went into my heart mind coherence, Say, well, this is a narrative that's no longer steering me in the proper direction, and I am not going to be limited by my body. Yes, you have to relearn how to do certain things so that you're not hurting yourself, but I'm not on medication and haven't been. Do I need to be? Maybe. But in the meantime, I've transcended a lot. Yeah, there are things in you that you chose and we all chose as a narrative. And when those narratives drop, your symptoms tend to go away. And some of these illnesses you pre-planned to take you out. So some people who are meant to transcend their illnesses will, and those that are not meant to, they're meant to, be an advocate or a proponent of giving the word and here's what I did to help me. That's what you're using it for, even though you might physical die from it. And that's just, once again, that's just my perception of it. The questioner asks, prevail on societies, the function thereof. Ross says that the very fiber of 3D is a societal one. That wherever there is entities conscious of other selves and self that can process info, that there are societies. Preveil had various structures, though it didn't depend on intentional enslavement of some for the benefit of others. Though in other structures there was disharmony as a product of various experiments, as we know as government. So there was societies. Third dimensional is we do need to be around people. This is how we learn and grow and find about our other selves. Rock quotes, there was none planned by the first great experiment. As all experiments, this rested upon the nakedness of hypothesis. The outcome was unknown. It was discovered experimentally and empirically that there were as many ways to penetrate the veil as the imagination of mind-body-spirit complexes could provide. The desire of mind-body-spirit complexes to know that which was unknown drew to them the dreaming and gradual opening to the seeker of all of the balancing mechanisms, leading to adepthood and communication with teach learners, which could pierce this veil, end quote. So as much as this is an experiment, being here, living, going through material world shit, it is an experiment. It's a divine experiment. We're the testers of the experiment to see what works and what doesn't work. And aren't we finding out about what is not working for us right now in this paradigm that we are existing in? Tyrannical governments, people hiding plainly in clear sight, shit that shouldn't be hidden, holding back from humanity, technology, honest answers. Why are the drones up in the sky? What are they there for? Instead of being a straightforward answer, you're getting a lot of fairy tale, whimsical answers because they don't want to tell you the truth. Governments need to have certain things classified and covered so that is preventing other distortions from coming in and doing evil things. Even though all is source. Wow, my body hurts. Sorry. I like the up here. Um, as all this stuff is happening, we're being shown what we prefer, what we don't. And the reason why we're being shown this polarized opposites is so that we know what we want. So that's what we choose. And that is a part of the experiment. Is if we don't go through the what we don't prefer experience, then how do we really know what we prefer? That's a contrast in evolution that we're going through. And we got to balance it all out. Because what might be good for you might not be good for someone else, but we need to balance what's good for all, because all is one. And there are people that can pierce the veil and kind of give you some insights. Many of us way showers can pierce and have had our veil pierced to an extent. I know mine has dropped exponentially. To identify with my other selves, to be able to label, even though I don't like labels, but to give names to entities, constructs, and different things. Of course, I spill things on my desktop. Fun times here. I mean, but all is to know yourself. The experiment is in which study of science do we need to do it in? What modality do we need to get this done in? And that's why a lot of people right now, it's a great remembering. In essence, you really are finding out who you really are. And that is a part of source. But all the other aspects of you playing out in higher densities, dimensional spaces, the multiverse, the innerverse, all of it. That's how the veil is dropping. For you to remember the great awakening is the great remembering. You're seeing all the dynamicism playing out in the outer world that is being projected by all selves as a purge of what we don't prefer. There's a lot of people who don't prefer the things that we prefer, but that's a lower percentage of the paradigm that will be experiencing what they don't prefer, which is then going to separate into polarity of this is where you need to go over there, and this is where you need to go over there. That's all this is doing. It's like parting of the Red Sea so that the neutral beings can walk straight through the middle to source. Because they are in the awareness that all the sources experience. And what do you prefer over what you don't? And you go into the middle to balance out both sides. You're going straight, narrow to source. It's a very interesting concept and one that I hope grows when people get out of their biases and get out into more an exploration of the neutrality that does exist out there. Because you have to remember, even though it's your perception, the world in you have a perception of how things should run is not necessarily how things are going to run. And to come into I have to weigh the pros and the cons of all things. What will work for me? What will not work for me? And then take the course direction of what timeline you're going to jump onto. If you choose to. People still may be, a lot of people will be leaving in the next couple of years. Because they can't handle the frequency or the extremes that are going to be still coming at you in a paradigm near you. The questioner asks Ra about two polarized entities penetrating the veil of both polarized and the techniques of veil penetration. Ra says the green ray activity had its roots of penetration of the veil, the all compassionate love, which demands no return. If one is to follow that path, the higher energy centers will be activated, also crystallized until an entity is born. Ra further says an entity has the potential to dismantle the veil to an extent that may be viewed again as one. Quote, the other self is primary catalyst in this particular path to the piercing of the veil, if you would call it that, end quote. Your other self is your mirror. Why Viking brought out the knowing within me to say, okay, he's presenting certain things to me that I need to make sure I'm healed on. I just pierced the veil because I knew that he was a catalyst for me to do healing. And you could, that's just an example, but all of you could do that with anybody in your life to ask, like, okay, here's piercing the veil is it's not just about you. It's about the lessons that you're supposed to learn. It's why you're here. And the learning teachings that you have traversed throughout your lifetime. Your other selves are there as a catalyst for you to remember. Like many other people that I've had relationships with, friends and not, I can recall a lot of them being in past, well, concurrent, not this time frame, the paradigm situations. I'll just say past lives for a better understanding, because all time is simultaneously occurring right now. But those other people that are inhabiting my life are people that already have inhabited other lifetimes. And we all come back for certain ways, like someone put me on my path. I said this about my ex of 13 years ago, that he's karmic, and in many failed relationships and failed existences with him in many different other lifetimes, this was the lifetime that we had to put each other on our paths of healing and discovery of certain aspects. And he sure did that for me. Although at the moment, in the moment, I didn't know that, and I didn't like him and wanted harm to come for hurting me and putting me in a bad state. But if that didn't happen, I wouldn't have had the spiritual awakening that I had. Certain words that he told me, I needed to choose a path, and the path that I chose was the one that needed to be explored. If he didn't give me that option, I wouldn't have went in that way. Now reflecting back, I understand why he came into my life and why I came into his. You can find that in anybody that you come into contact with. They're helping you understand your mission, your whys, your things you need to be here to heal in order to move forward. The questioner asks about the first mechanism of the first veiling. Ra, quote, the mechanism of the veiling between the conscious and unconscious portions of the mind was a declaration that the mind was complex. Further, body and spirit become complex. The next is the catalyst of pain and the illusion which Ra indicates. If we have an attitude that the various aspects of pain, the verbalization of that attitude in the direction towards the distortion is one of productive help to aid in the process of evolution, aka alchemize and transmute the catalyst pain. I was talking about this earlier with my illnesses. I no longer define them as my being. Do they affect me to an extent? Yes. I have a physical vehicle that's rather damaged, but I don't let it define my story anymore. It's not a theme that I need to explore anymore. I persevere through the pain, and when I'm in pain, it's a body signal for me to slow down, calm down, and to relax. And maybe change things up in my diet, or if I can't, to maybe bless my food differently or use a different frequency. They're all permission slips. But the pain, if we didn't experience it, we wouldn't have contrast to what we prefer to what we don't. Ra goes on to say whether by pre-incarnative choice or by reprogramming during incarnation, one has developed an insurance program of catalyst, which we desirously use that catalyst and has determined its own satisfaction. What we ascribe the large board needs application to the forehead to obtain the attention of the self. Hence, the other self offers itself to further the purpose of evolution. So, in order for us, with our choice, that we already chose certain things, or we are reprogramming because we're jumping to higher timelines of experience, each catalyst is going to present itself differently in different timelines. You still need it, that accident, that illness, the pain, the relationship breakup, whatever it is that you need still exists, but it's going to present itself differently in a different timeline. Maybe by someone else, maybe not. But when you look at the greater board of the playing field, and you apply it to your mind, you're getting your unconscious, subconscious's attention. And that's where the other selves on your outside world will project back to you the purpose that you're here. If I didn't have this channel and I was just speaking willfully to the air, would anybody get my messaging? It's all of you, my other selves, that are absorbing the lessons, teachings, possibilities, potentialities that I'm speaking of and expanding it for your own self to know your own self. But if I was just speaking to the air and didn't put these out, no one would be able to do that for themselves, or they would be able to do that in another way, from another catalyst, from another perspective. All serves a succinct purpose in life. There's no accidents. So when you're listening to somebody and you take something that hits you, you have an epiphany, or you re-listen to something 10 years later, and you're like, oh my God, I'm rereading The Law of One. I read it 20-something years ago, and I'm perceiving it completely different from when I first read it. Because now I understand the intricacies of all of it, and I understand it to a larger capacity. When you read something and you don't really get it, and you're just reading it as a fun book to just delve into, to actually understanding, applying, integrating the laws and the information that I am reading, is two different ball games. You know, many people read 1984, but if you read it in the context of the now moment, it makes a shit ton more sense because you're actually experiencing components of that book. Whereas when you read it back as a kid, you were really not in the awareness that things were really occurring back even then that the book is reflecting. It's just an easier example to gain awareness from. We all have to realize that regardless of Preveil to the veil, this is an experiment and that we chose to be a part of it because our oversouls said, you're strong enough to withstand a lot of this. You're the one that's persevering through most of all the lives you've lived, and this is your strongest aspect to play in a third dimensional reality. Here you are. And here's some choices. We're going to help you from upstairs. But even then with the veil, you've forgotten that you even had help. Until certain things start synchronizing with you, you start seeing repetitive numbers. You have experiences no one else can kind of explain for you. You have to just figure it out on your own. You interpret the world differently after you pierce the veil a little bit. You start seeing the bigger picture for what it really is instead of what it really isn't. This is why the law of one is very important. Whether you align with this information or not, you don't have to, but it's just here to expand your thinking in directions that most people don't want to tackle. And not to say that most people won't tackle, most people will in time, space, and their own timing. Some people are not meant to understand any of this. Hang on, guys. I hate this camera. I hating Zoom. Stop it. Oh, there it goes. Sort of. Sorry. Just, I don't like things in my face. It doesn't need to be there. Thank you. Much better. I tried playing with the settings. No. But through and through, coming into the realization that you need your other selves, you need contrast, you needed this experience in this experiment to grow your soul. And what we don't realize, and maybe what the veil is hiding from us, is the grand mission that we're all meant to be on. That it's an accumulation of all the quests. If you look at the World of Warcraft and equate your life to that game, you start at level 1 in a little isolated place where not too many people can breach to harm you as you live and learn your experience. Just like a little kid, your parents are protecting you from the outside world to an extent. And as you get older, you are able to do a little bit more independently until you become the adult and you put your whatever you choose to play, your big gown on or your big chain link chainmail on, and get your battle axe and go out in the world and fight the monsters. And the bigger, higher level you are, the bigger the rewards. I mean, we're all playing this simulation in very similar regards to that game. it's not unfounded why certain things are in your paradigm to have experience with. I don't know, the veiling is still there. If I was here for the being unveiled and living life, living an experience in different modes and modalities that would give me different types of soul growth. But ultimately, the veil has been placed so that we have ultimate soul growth, that things weren't being achieved in the laws of nature when we remembered. But now the veil is slowly dropping for so many, and it's not going to drop completely. I don't believe it will. And that's only because that would infringe in your free will. Just like Ross says a lot in the book, like, I can't say or give you this answer because it infringes on your free will. Because you still have lessons and a three-dimensional soul contract to play out. Your pre-incarnative agreement with Source still needs to play out, and you can't know what that is, because you would then either run away from the responsibility of experiencing it, or you can shift it and you won't get the ultimate soul growth you need from it. Potentially. I mean, there's a lot of variables in between, but we're all here. We all have a mission. We have multiple missions, and I know that we are not supposed to know all of them. Just like any medium, you ask them about their future, they're not going to tell you that if they do know, they might know some aspects of things, but I can't know a lot about my own self, and I can't foresee for myself. I have insights about certain realities and potentialities that I pick up on, but I don't run my life that way by someone else's predictions or my own. It's a potential. It's not an absolute. So that's why I don't really rely on remote viewers and people that do tell you predictions, because that's what it is. It's a potential in a timeline that has a 50% or more potential of happening. Does it mean it will happen? No. Time is speeding up right now because humanity came to the conclusion unconsciously that it should speed up. Enough people are in the awareness that shit is wrong and it needs to be fixed. And how that's playing out in this world is the materiality of things collapsing. A lot of us who are here suffer from not having enough abundance, having the slate wiped clean from you, and now waiting for help. You know, maybe I'm a test for a lot of people to see if they're compassionate or not. I don't know. What I do know is there's too many people out there that can't provide for themselves the basic necessities of life. And until we balance that out for all to be abundant and have enough, we're not going to really be moving much further forward until more people consciously put a halt on their manifesting for that side. Because whether you like it or not, you could be of the light all day long, but when you're feeding the negative side for them to manifest their conscious, unconscious reality that you're living in and being a part of, you're only perpetuating the pain and the suffering. A lot of people have asked me why I am not currently like in a lot of chats. And that is because I am not feeding a paradigm I do not belong in anymore. That's not the reality I choose to harbor. I choose to live in a reality where more and more people are waking up to not hating other selves, to not separating themselves and limiting themselves based on their biases and prejudice of the other self. I'm not feeding a paradigm of hate because I keep perpetuating it every time I say I hate. I don't want to be a part of that. Sorry. There's a way in your verbs, your verbalization, your diction, your vocabulary to word things in such a way that is matured, respectful, yet getting to the point that, yeah, there is fuckery afoot. But I'm seeing grown adults not being able to put that action into motion, but they continuously don't like what's going on, but yet they're perpetuating it with their speech. And that's a very hard truth for a lot of people to accept, because that means you have to change the very essence of what you say. Many people can't give that up just yet. I know it took me a while to get off the bandwagon that I was following everybody else. I did believe it in my heart for a while, but now not so much. I don't condone that side, but I don't feed it energy anymore, so I don't pay attention to it. Is it existing? Sure. And they can exist over there. I know they're a part of source, they're a part of this paradigm, and they're a part of my experience for me to learn from, to see what I don't prefer. And if we all start remembering when the veil does drop from you and you start understanding the bigger concept that you are one with all things, and actually encapsulate that in your essence, well, you start understanding the bigger picture. Rod did a fantastic job. I love his analogies and how he's explaining certain things. This section was not an easy one to place my insights on without quoting him. I try not to. But his work is very important to understand, at least. When it comes to the pain and the illusion, and this vehicle has certain aspects that it needs to go through. Your soul's playing it out. If you're meant to go in a certain aspect, it's going to go that way. Nothing can stop that. You could prolong your life by choosing different things. You jump the timeline to say, well, I'm not allowing this to take me out. And that just becomes an experience of learning and teaching for others. Illness, pain, and suffering is an attempt to grasp at the concept of compassion and giving grace to people and being patient with people. It's a tool. I know when I am not at my 100%, I would hope that people stepped up, and only a few did. But I had to persevere through a lot in order to even be without medication to function. And I'm happy that I persevered. So whatever you're going through, take it, detach from it, see what the lesson is, and not just for yourself, for the other selves out there. And don't let it define you. Learn from it. Rod did a really good job this section. Very happy with the questions that were asked. Book 4 is profound on so many levels, and there's a lot there I didn't add in that I always recommend reading the books that I'm reading for yourself, because you might perceive things differently from me, but you wouldn't know that unless you read it. So make sure you go read the book and listen to others who do and explore the law of one. I think it's important to see it from many different viewpoints. So sending each and every one of you love, light, compassion, grace, shielding, and protective energy. Please go within, be the shoulder, be the lighthouse, seed your truths. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you're interested in a channel membership, it's just at a 3D level. You will be entered to win a pyramid, and I'll be doing that drawing, and more information will be out during the week about that. Look out in the community tab for when I will be doing. I'm still looking at imagery to see which one I want to paint, to do a paint and sip with you guys. And also looking at what I have paint wise, and craft wise. I want to do some different things on the channel to have fun and just to have a hangout and fun time. So check my community tab next week, which should start tomorrow. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Thank you for all your support. Please be safe, be seen, be the light, shine it bright. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.